The holidays can stir up a lot for people with anxious attachment, but it doesn't have to feel overwhelming. And once you understand why this season affects you, it becomes easier to stay steady and stay connected to yourself and just respond in ways that feel healthier and more like you. By the way, I'm Kaylee Larkin. I help people who are looking for a secure and healthy relationship and who want to feel calmer and more confident in the dating process. So, one big reason that the holidays can be stressful for folks with anxious attachment is that routines change, and that makes things feel unpredictable. So, there's holiday travel, there's hosting, running errands, grabbing a tree, changing work schedules, whatever it is. This can all shift that usual rhythm of connection. For anxious attachment, predictability feels stabilizing. So, when this changes, it makes sense that people might feel unsettled. So, for example, say you're dating someone who is replying less because they're with family. Or maybe you have a partner who forgets to check in nightly because their schedule is just so packed. Or maybe it's friends who normally you talk daily with and then suddenly they're not texting you as much. And so it's helpful to just remember that, these aren't signs of disconnection. These are temporary changes in structure. So it helps to name the pattern, like saying something like, oh, our schedules are different this week, so communication might be a little lighter. Or setting small agreements like, okay, can we touch base once in the morning or before bed when you're traveling? And it also is really helpful to have some kind of plan to ground your nervous system. I love doing nervous system regulation with clients, so it's helpful to have one or two just quick self-regulation practices ready for those days when text messages are slow or plans are shifting. So reason number 2 is that emotional demands increase, so there's less bandwidth. Let's be real, the holidays can ask a lot of people. It's financial, it's emotional, it's social. And as people's stress starts to rise, they can lose some clarity. So for example, people might be pulled between going to different events or worrying that they're going to disappoint someone, or just feeling a little tense and on edge and then taking things extra personally. So if you've experienced any of these, a reframe is to notice that just because you're feeling more sensitive doesn't mean that you're losing progress. It means that you're a human and you're just in a stressful time period. So simplifying where possible, making fewer plans, or just having realistic expectations, building in some nice recovery time for yourself, or taking short breaks between social interactions, those can all be super helpful. And check your interpretations. If something feels like too much, just revisit it in an hour when you've had a little time to settle in and think about it. The third reason is that family dynamics can reactivate old roles. So even the most supportive family might bring up an earlier version of yourself, like the helper or the problem solver or the peacemaker. So, for example, you might be the one who feels responsible for keeping the peace, or you're doing more emotional labor than everyone else, or worrying about the expectations that people have of you at the holiday dinner. And so just noticing, okay, these reactions, they show where I've grown, and now I can choose how I show up now. So it can be helpful to decide ahead of time whether you want to step into certain roles or not, and decide in advance what your boundaries are. By the way, I have a super helpful class on boundaries for anxious attachment style. You can check that out. It also helps to take breaks, to step away from the group, to just do some nervous system regulation and just, settle into the moment so that you can enjoy yourself. So 4 is there's a stronger focus on relationship status. So everywhere you turn, people might be posting about, engagements, things they're doing, relationships, holiday traditions. And let's be real, that can be triggering for someone who didn't have the easiest upbringing. And so when you're feeling behind, when friends announce big relationship news, or you're hearing comments like, oh, so is there anyone new in your life? Or if you're walking into gatherings alone, it's really helpful to reframe this. Like, okay, I don't have to keep up with them. My individual relationship path doesn't need to match anyone else's. I'm on my own timeline. So limiting that comparison, that will help to reduce those triggers. And, you can take a break from accounts if needed, from social accounts if needed, and just grounding what you want to have in the long term. So, like if you want a stable, secure relationship, then it's worth the pacing that is going to eventually lead to that. So just reminding yourself that you're focusing on quality, not the speed that it takes to get there. Fifth is that changes in communication might feel more significant. So when people get busy, communication is naturally going to change a little bit. And if you're used to like a steady, consistent contact, that difference might feel bigger than it actually is. So for example, there might be slower replies or shorter messages, more distractions. So just remembering that shift is not about you or the relationship necessarily. It's often just logistical. And it helps to clarify your expectations. Like, okay, what is communication going to look like this week? And, checking in, okay, has anything actually changed? Or is it just the holidays and everybody's busy? And again, using a quick grounding exercise, some nervous system regulation before responding can be super helpful. 6 is that people that you rely on, they may be less available. So even the most supportive partners or friends, they have a lot of competing priorities at this time of year. So for example, you might have a close friend who's hosting family and they're just not as responsive as they normally are, or a partner who's dealing with their own stress, or somebody who is usually a really good, really deep listener in your life and they've just got a lot going on themselves and so they're just not around as much to talk things through. So reminding yourself, okay, this isn't about me. Their capacity is limited right now. It's understandable. And it also helps to diversify your support. So checking in with multiple friends, not just relying on one person to talk things through, or to planning some self-care and self-support strategies like journaling or, taking a nice walk or doing a calming exercise. It also really helps to communicate your needs clearly. So just letting people know, I don't need a fix. I just need a quick check-in when you have a moment. Or, it doesn't need to be a long conversation, just a quick check-in when you have a moment to set expectations. 7 is travel and distance are adding extra uncertainty. So travel naturally interrupts routines. People don't have access to their phones all the time. Maybe there's a long gap. Someone's actually flying, or there's communication patterns that are shifting. So for example, maybe someone that you're dating is with their family, and so they're like barely on their phone. Or you feel unsettled being away from your usual environment. So scheduling can also make contact unpredictable. And it helps to reframe this as like this is a short-term disruption. This isn't a shift in the connection, it's short-term. And it also helps to agree on timing before the travel starts. So, talking about when to do check-ins, you can keep reminders visible for yourself. Like maybe you have a photo of a loved one that you keep nearby, or maybe you have supportive messages, or you agreed to send notes back and forth to each other at certain times. And always having those self-regulation and grounding tools for yourself so that when you feel tethered, when you feel untethered, you have something to rely on. 8 is that old holiday memories can influence current feelings. So memories from previous years, they can shape how the season feels now. So for example, maybe there was a difficult holiday in the past and then it's, you're being reminded of that. Or maybe you had a breakup that happened around the season, or, a loss. So past loneliness, that can, affect people at this time of year. And it can be helpful to just notice when those old memories show up, but know that they don't have to define this year. I recently had the best birthday I've ever had in my life. One of my friends said, that's really inspiring that, not all of our good birthdays are behind us. So you can have a different holiday this year. You can have whatever holiday you want to have. Part of it is mindset. It's how we relate to what's happening around us. And so just naming like, okay, that was in the past, this is now. I get to choose what is happening now to a certain extent. So part of that is noticing, okay, what happened in the past versus what's current. You can create some new rituals to give the season a different emotional tone. You can reach out to supportive people early instead of like just waiting for triggers. And that can all be super helpful. So 9 is there's expectations around togetherness, and that can really create pressure for people. There's this cultural idea that everyone should be cheerful and emotionally available all the time. And so some people might feel guilty for needing space, or they might feel pressure to be on at every gathering, or they might worry that, oh, if I'm single, it means I'm behind. And it's helpful to just know that you're going at your own pace and your own comfort level. So choosing your level of engagement, setting boundaries with kindness, I'd love to see you, I need a slower day, and then building moments into your schedule to recharge, especially if you're an introvert and you need some recharge time or just some time to recover when there's a lot going on, all super helpful as well. Number 10 is comparison spikes across social circles, because sometimes when you see a lot going on and you're having FOMO, it can be hard to avoid comparing when social media is highlighting everybody's celebrations. So, for example, you might feel behind when other people share their relationship milestones. That's understandable. Or compare your family to somebody else's family and like, oh gosh, I wish I had a supportive family, or whatever it is. Or you might compare your financial situations, like, gosh, I wish I had as much as they have, or, these different comparisons. It could be emotional experiences. And so just remembering that, like, you're seeing the highlight, you're not seeing the full picture. You're comparing your insides to somebody else's outsides. And so it helps to consciously limit that exposure if you notice that comparison game escalating, and then recenter. So what actually matters for your relationships right now? And celebrating the small wins, because even like little tiny steps towards security can be very helpful. Number 11 is feeling responsible for everyone's experience. So anxious attachment often comes with a heightened attunement to other people. So for example, you want to make sure everyone's comfortable, or you want to mediate some tension and make sure relationships are okay, or taking on tasks to avoid conflict. So remembering that you can be caring without taking responsibility for everything. And it helps to just take a moment before jumping in, like, okay, do I want to do this, or am I feeling obligated? And just checking in with yourself if this is aligned with your boundaries. And then you can experiment with small boundaries, like, I'm going to sit this one out. Or maybe you do choose to participate and you just do it in a way that's really honoring your own boundaries. So people are adults and, they can manage their own feelings. We don't have to help them manage their feelings necessarily. Of course we can if it's within our boundaries, but we want to just make sure that we're being aligned with who we are. Number 12 is that early dating can feel more uncertain during the holidays. So there's timing, there's expectations, there's mixed signals, and that can all feel amplified when a connection is new. So for example, if you're not sure what gift giving should look like with a new date or a new partner, maybe there's mixed pacing. So it's warm one day and it's a little slower the next. Or you're not sure whether to bring a new relationship to the family holiday. You're not sure whether, about the holiday status. So it's helpful to remember that uncertainty in early dating is normal, and it doesn't mean that something's wrong. And it also helps to keep communication simple. Like, okay, let's keep things low pressure, focusing on that consistency, not the intensity. And just giving the connection room to grow without forcing any kind of clarity. 13 is that being single can feel more noticeable. So even people who feel comfortable being single can experience a shift in December. So, for example, showing up to events alone. Some people feel some pressure around that. They feel pressure like they need to show up with somebody, or feeling displaced during activities that are focused on couples, or worrying that you're starting another year behind. So, it helps to remember that being single during the holidays does not say anything about your worth or your future. And to build plans that are supportive, they're not obligatory, and just to connect with other single friends or chosen family and anchor in what you're building for your future relationships. 14 is financial pressure, because that can add on to emotional stress, right? Financial strain makes emotional regulation harder for everybody. So maybe people are stressing out about gifts, or they're feeling self-conscious about what they can afford, or they're worrying that someone will misinterpret the gift that they got because it was simple. And so just remembering that thoughtfulness matters more than price. You can make a really awesome homemade gift, or you can find something really simple and just meaningful that the person knows that you were thinking about them. You can set spending limits early, or you can offer alternatives. Instead of gifts, offer shared time or experiences or something really practical. And just communicate honestly, so most people understand more than you might expect. Number 15 is you're more exposed to external opinions. So people do tend to comment more openly about relationships this time of year. So for example, they might ask you things around the dinner table like, oh, when were you going to settle down? Or, are you seeing anyone yet? Or, well, don't be so picky. And it can be helpful to reframe their comments that they reflect their perspective and it's not necessarily your path. And so what helps is to use some, short, neutral responses like, oh, I'm taking my time and I'm happy with that. And then shift the topic. Like, what about you? How have you been? What's going on in your life? And just remind yourself that external pressure, it doesn't define your timeline. You are dating and going at your own pace, and that is completely your timeline. So a more hopeful way to see all of this with the holidays is that the holidays don't create our attachment patterns. They just amplify certain parts of them. And the fact that you're noticing these patterns now, it's actually a sign of progress. So awareness means that you're catching what used to just run in the background, and then supportive reframes mean you're interrupting old cycles. And when you try new responses, it means you're building security in real time. So each time you navigate a stressful moment with a little bit more clarity, a little bit more calm, you're reinforcing the kind of relationship skills that lead to the secure partnership that you want. And if you're wanting a little bit more structure or support during a holiday season that tends to feel busy and lots of emotional layers, this is a really great time to use the tools inside the Secure Love Toolkit. It's designed for anxious attachment and dating, and it gives you clear guidance on how to stay steady and recognize healthy, secure connection, and then feel more confident in choosing the right relationships. And even simple practices from the toolkit can make the holidays feel calmer and more manageable. So thank you so much for watching. This is Kaylee Larkin. Drop a comment, let me know what resonated, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. This is Kaylee Larkin, wishing you a beautiful relational journey.